Welcome to Makers of Tomorrow, the podcast where each episode we talk with founders, industry leaders, and innovators to explore the latest trends shaping brands and the consumer experience.
We are your hosts, Karine Mallet and Corey Gottlieb, founders of Replica, the social selling platform revolutionizing how brands connect, inspire, and sell in today's digital world. So whether you're a brand leader, entrepreneur, or just fascinated by the evolution of digital commerce, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today we're talking about a brand that's redefined movement, Onewheel. More than just a mode of transportation, Onewheel has become a symbol of freedom, self-expression, and next-gen mobility. Our guest today is Eric Del Valle, Director of E-commerce at Onewheel, guiding the brand's digital journey, turning clicks into community and transactions into movement. In this episode, we explore what it takes to build and scale a passionate community of consumers and how Onewheel is staying ahead of constantly evolving digital world. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
So to start, can you tell us a little bit about your role at Onewheel and how you got started into the world of e-commerce?
Sure. So I lead e-commerce and advertising for Onewheel. And so really from the first time that you see an ad, the creation of that ad to your experience on the website, that's all within the roadmap that I develop. And I really enjoy e-commerce from the behavioral psychology standpoint. And my real obsession kind of comes down to understanding what makes people tick, why people scroll rather than bounce, and what really helps to shape those unconscious behaviors along the way. So really got into e-commerce through first selling watches actually in high school over 20 years ago. And, that spawned into its own business throughout college, and kind of the ability to connect on shared passions and enthusiasms with other folks from really all across the world. And
an entrepreneur from early on.
Yeah. So something that always interested me. And I spent some time at Google in the advertising world, and then went into more D2C startups. And that's really where I reconnected with my passion for e-commerce. And luckily enough, we had the e-commerce boom during COVID, and there's been a lot more acceleration of the market and of the technology.
So what excited you to join a brand like Onewheel?
I've always really been into outdoor recreation and board sports. So really I've been, I've been almost obsessed with snowboarding for the better part of a decade now. And Onewheeling was created to simulate the feeling of carving through fresh powder, the thought of weightlessness as you're going through the snow. And it's a bit of a magical feeling. If you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I have.
Okay, good. And, the hard part about that, though, is, those moments are limited to certain times of the year. And it takes so much effort and money to get up to the mountain. And so we wanted to really bring that to the everyday. And that's something that personally was missing from my life. And I found that effectively, this was a pretty rare company to where, I'd love to work for a snowboard brand, but there's not that many in San Francisco, and they're highly seasonal. So to me, what it really came down to is how do we sell a lifestyle more so than a product itself? And that challenge that really goes beyond what many e-commerce companies have to deal with was really fascinating to me. It helped a lot that it was a personal passion, and that nearly everyone at the company is also into the outdoors and takes the approach that we are trying to spread that mindset and improve mental health more so than just trying to drive more and more revenue.
It's interesting because in our initial conversations, I didn't actually catch this nuance, but you said the brand was kind of created with the idea of replicating that great feeling that you get from snowboarding, but it's definitely morphed into a personal mobility device and people way beyond just the snowboarding community, right?
Yeah, our customers are probably not who you'd expect. We started with our core customer base of folks who are into more extreme sports, whether it be snowboarding, skiing, mountain biking, surfing, you name it. And beyond that, during the outdoor recreation boom a few years ago, we started to go more mainstream. And now we do have, I still think primarily we're 35 to 50 years old, male skewed, and tend to be a little bit more affluent due to the price point of $1,000 to $3,000. But people use Onewheels in very unconventional ways. Outside of hitting the single track trail from mountain bikes, you also have folks who use it on their farm to get around, because it fits in their combine in a way that other vehicles don't. You have private pilots who use it to go from the hangar to the parking lot, or folks who go to a new place on their boat and they ride into town and they have a mobility device that's easy. And then you also have folks like me who live in a big city. I'm in San Francisco, and a lot of folks throughout the world find it's not just a way to get from point A to point B. It's not just about commuting, but it's about really enjoying the fact that you're outside and that you can have those few moments of zen in your everyday life. So you're not just going in a straight line. And when you carve, you get the release of serotonin and dopamine, and you start to really look at your city and your surroundings in a very different way.
So I guess what you're saying is it's not just getting to the destination, it's really the journey to get there that you guys are tapping into.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun, and it really is about more so enjoying getting from A to B rather than just simply getting there as quickly as possible.
So how do you engage with this audience? It seems like they're very mobile. They're outdoors a lot. How do you engage with them, like online and offline?
Really, the best way to engage with them was not trying to push our brand narrative on them, which we did for a while. We're a California-based company. We're in a small town, surf town called Santa Cruz, and that lifestyle wasn't always applicable, to the average consumer. And so I really made it a main focal point of listening to our customers and trying to better understand where they're coming from. Whether that has been through a series of social campaigns, like we did one called "One Wheel Changed My Life," and really focused on what are the positive ways that Onewheel has impacted your life. And a lot of the stories surprised us. And I think
I don't want to put you on the spot, but could you give us like a cool one?
One of the most surprising ones were folks who are physically limited now, either through some type of traumatic event or degeneration. So they're not easily able to walk anymore. Some of them had been amputated even, and they are now able to use Onewheel in a way that allows them to be much more mobile throughout the world and not think every single time they want to go from point A to point B about how difficult it is to get there. And so it gives them a way to get through the world a lot more easily and reclaim some of that fun. But I think some of the more salient examples that have done really well as creatives are folks who have overcome addiction, whether it was through drugs or alcohol. Whenever they get that itch, they hop on a Onewheel and tap into that
high you get from being out there and carving a turn and getting your dopamines up and breathing the fresh air. Yeah, I get it.
And I guess, the funny thing too, Corey, is just the number of folks who ride with their kids. And, the teenage kids, they're hard to connect with, as a parent. Yeah. And we found that a lot of, call them rad dads, and many moms too, love to take their kids after school and go for a ride, or connect with them and see a new place that's really pretty, and it tends to spark conversations that otherwise teenagers don't want to have with their parents.
No, it's amazing. It's actually, I'm a ski dad. I taught my 3 now adult children how to ski, and And it is incredible that bonding that you get when you're doing a physical activity together with teenagers, because you're right, it breaks down a lot of the traditional barriers of mom and dad versus teens. And, we all have our different mindsets, but at the end of the day, we're all doing this activity together. We're all trying to get better at it. We're all enjoying it. And it's a great way to bond as a family. I hadn't really thought about it until you said that, but it's really important.
So, how do you use all that user-generated content in your strategy for your e-commerce? All that storytelling from your community.
I think one of the biggest things about Onewheel is most folks have heard about it, but they have a preconceived notion as to why it's not for them. Too expensive, it's too dangerous, I'm too old, fill in the blank, right? And so I really try to look at these stories of not just showing emotion and vulnerability, but how are they helping the rest of the world to overcome these blockers, right? Effectively, we are creating demand for this product. It's not a commodity, and so because of that, we really need folks to redefine Onewheel in their head, right? So sometimes, we recently ran a different ad about an 80-year-old who's a grandfather who happens to ride, and we tailor the message to the channel. So if it's social, it should be a little bit more lighthearted. Maybe you don't want to hear about it, overcoming addiction on social. And so we focus on, the fact that falling is learning, and some of these more, connecting through family time. And I think for 16:9 wide commercials, we tend to focus on the heavier topics and find that folks are a bit more captive, right, when they're watching CTV. And because of that, they're not scrolling, they're not looking for the next content. They're just kind of sitting on their couch waiting for the program to come back on. And so if we can surprise, delight, and make them reshape the product in their mind through telling them a story, then that is way more powerful than me having VO on a creative and telling them, hey, this product's great, it goes this fast, and you should buy it.
So I guess the logical follow-up question to that is, who tells that story? Is it, athletes that use your product? Is it loyal customers? Is it influencers? Like, how do you get that message across? Who tells that story?
I think the one that we landed on and found resonated most with our audience is the customer, and letting the customer take center stage. Initially, for many years, we would hire talent and we'd have talent ride, and we would tell a story that kind of sounded believable, but was maybe, a compilation of real life user stories. And the visual would be from a, very highly produced content team and an actor riding. It just didn't hit. Right. And when we changed it to, we've flown customers out to our HQ and, brought them into our studio to tell their story and coach them on, how to format it in a way that kind of hits the consumer in the right way. And that is the most powerful, because people are really able to tell, especially in this day and age, who's real and who's not. And so to be able to look at someone and understand, yes, Onewheel has actually changed their life, and you see the emotion in their face and the genuine happiness in their smile when they're telling a story. And then of course the B-roll is them riding, right? It's not some actor, or it is actually them. And by focusing on them and giving them the spotlight, it is significantly more powerful than us saying the same thing, because it doesn't feel like marketing. It feels like real life, because it is.
Well, listen, you brought up two examples already. And again, I hadn't thought about this, but you brought up two examples that are real life examples for me. One is that boating, where people get off their boats and they're in a place, and I see lots of people dragging around, if you have a big enough boat, if you're lucky to have one, bicycles, but that's just too much, honestly. And then you mentioned that as people get older sometimes and their mobility is slightly diminished, that this is a great way to, stay with their kids, play with their grandchildren, do things that, that they want to do. And I think those are great real life stories to help, talk about the brand. So I guess I'll come back to, like, how do you then take those real life stories and turn them into maybe an actionable sales tool? And does it drive e-commerce? And just, the reason why, I'm honing in on this is, I think, as Karina and I created a company called Replica Software. And this is what the software essentially does for brands. And we've seen it in a lot of different places. We deal with retailers as clients. We have cosmetics companies. We have beauty companies and so forth. But never a brand like yours, which is really a good storytelling brand. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you take that good reasons for riding with real people doing it, and let's call it accelerate it and accentuate it so it shows up to an audience that, can resonate with that?
I think it's for us about meeting people where they are in the buyer's journey, right? When folks initially start, they need to be sold on the idea of the lifestyle of it. And that's why I've moved away from talking about the fact that we have 6 boards and the factors that separate them. But those stories that I mentioned are really top of funnel, really brand focused. And then once they come to the site, then we're serving them different creative and different content as far as moving them down the funnel. Once they're ready, then okay, what type of board is good for you?
Right.
Answer a few questions, and we'll kind of help you through this process. But it really comes down to getting people hooked. It typically takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, if not longer, for people to make a decision about a Onewheel. And so it's really taking folks out on this journey of, does the brand resonate with you, and then which of our boards will fit your lifestyle.
Sorry to interrupt. In that a journey to discovery and ultimately to hopefully purchase, do you feel it's important that somebody actually physically get on the board? Because I know you have 800 retail locations in 40 different countries around the world. So obviously you've got some really good distribution. They may not purchase in the store. They may purchase in the store. I'm trying to see if this is such a cool item, but you're right. There might be a lot of reasons why people don't want to go there until they step on the board and go, oh my God, I can do this. So you have a retail strategy, you have an e-commerce strategy, and I'm guessing in some cases those worlds mesh, right?
Right. We hold a number of in-person events every summer to have demos. And what we found, though, is most folks reported they don't actually find that riding or seeing it physically in person helped to really be a big important factor. That is surprising to me.
Yeah.
But of course, I do feel that most people, when I have personally, anecdotally, shown them how to ride and what this looks like when it's not zooming past you, right, as most people have seen, and it is approachable, and it does 18,000 calculations per second to help you balance. Those are the things that make people feel comfortable. So we are trying to do a better job of figuring out how to get it in front of more people. I think the difficult thing is doing it in a way that really is scalable.
Right.
So going through that, e-commerce changed fast. There's a lot of new innovations. What are some of the challenges that you have faced, and how is your team has addressed it?
I think when it comes to e-commerce, it's really about separating the noise from what is actually going to help users along the checkout process. So there's a lot of things that we started with on our site that were creating analysis paralysis, and folks were being asked to go down too many rabbit holes, right? So when you buy a car, you want, and sometimes manufacturers want you to always spend more money. And they do that by offering more customizations, right? Do you want the base model, or do you want a faster engine? Do you want this paint color? Or do you want
McDonald's created that, right? Do you want fries with that? I
Right.
mean, that's been around for a long time, and it works.
Yeah, it works. It works, I think, to a certain extent, right? And then you start to see diminishing returns where you're getting in the way of someone actually just trying to check out. And so my goal for a while now has been, how do we actually simplify the website and how do we simplify the buying process so that we are just defaulting folks to purchase a board. Rather, in the past, we were defaulting to, hey, you should get a bundle. And we made it difficult for people to only purchase the board. But if you go from, okay, I'm sold on the idea, to you got to choose between 6 boards. And then you choose a board, you got to choose between 3 bundles. When you choose a bundle, you have to choose 20 different colors for 5 different parts. And then well, do these colors make sense? Do they mesh well together? Not everyone, cares or wants that level of detail.
You also lose them in the journey, right? I mean, classic e-commerce is have people click the least amount of times ultimately to make a purchase. So
yeah, and so that to me has been the biggest change in looking at this, because yes, it is a more expensive product. You want to treat it like that and not like a $50 impulse buy.
Sure.
But there's a happy medium. So we still give folks the ability to opt in to customizing to the nth degree, but we don't make everyone do it. And that's been a huge mindset shift internally.
That's really, really interesting and great insight for everybody listening, because, you'd think that at just continually adding the fries with that and then the dessert and everything, you'd think that it would just continue to grow and have a straight line on your average order value, but it probably doesn't. And in your case, you described it pretty clearly that after a while, trying to add more things or make so many customizations could actually inhibit the sale, or at least certainly slow it down. So I could see that. I mean, obviously after the sale, you probably...
Sure. The more they're confused, the less they will click to the end and purchase it. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, precisely.
So one more thing that resonated really well for me today, when you said that the in-store, you don't really have to try the board out first, that a lot of your customers know that they want it, and then others may be apprehensive, and it's your job on the e-commerce side, give them that confidence level that they can do it and that it's really fun and they'll really enjoy it. Do you encourage the first-time users of your boards, or maybe some people outside your traditional demographic, to provide user-generated content about how easy it is, or like, if I can do it, even you can do it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's been a drum I've been beating for quite a while, because I think people need to see themselves in the creative and also in how it integrates into their everyday life. So for many years, we were just focusing on the 20-something and California background, or somewhere in the desert. Mm-hmm. But by doing it in a place that feels more relatable from a background standpoint, and people who feel more real, and they don't look like athletes, they're not the best riders, but they're pretty good. They're decent. Maybe you see them struggling a little bit and they're a little wobbly when they ride. That's okay. That actually helps people to know that, oh, this is not contrived. And so we've done a lot of effort around focusing on real people who represent demographics that we know end up resonating really well on Onewheels, and just trying to understand, like I mentioned earlier, whether it's a grandfather, an 80-year-old that rides, or or a dad who maybe used to ride we have a lot of like prior
skateboarders.
Yeah,
I get it.
And those folks are like, oh, like my joints, were shot, or maybe I can't, I just can't do the things that I used to anymore. But right. I found that it's a lot better on my joints, and it's actually it's more fun. And so focusing on not just the mental health aspects, but also the overall, like, get out there and be active in a way that's fun and is not like, oh, I have to do X number of steps today.
Yeah, no, the interesting thing about this conversation for me is that I think out of all the brands we've talked to on the podcast, and even a lot of the brands we work with on a regular basis, you really have a story to tell. And so if you can do that effectively, I mean, because there's always going to be those people who, are really good at skateboarding. They know your product. They're going to, they know you're a leader in the industry. They're going to want to buy it. But really, when you think about like those dads or somebody who might go to no first, like maybe it's not right for me, the user generated content, the community aspect of it, seeing that other people can do it and having fun with it, going out with their grandchildren and doing an activity together when it's not skis, even if you're a skier, you only have a certain period of time that you can do that. So I think those stories are really important. And I think, your brand is well served by your focus on this storytelling. I think that's really important and really interesting. So when you look to the future now, I mean, they say that the world of marketing in the last 30 years is going to be overstepped by the world of marketing in the next 3 years. So things are changing really, really quickly. How do you see things changing, and what would be like a new step for you trying to navigate this ever-moving consumer and consumer behavior?
Yeah, there have been so many changes in marketing from iOS 14 to the cookieless world potentially, and the list goes on. But I think it's really pivotal to me to understand what is smoke and mirrors versus what is an actual game changer. So I devote a decent amount of time every quarter to investigating new platforms, new software, and also speaking with folks who are also in the trenches and going through the world of e-commerce and trying to find wins. And really having a solid feedback loop is where I try to focus a lot of my time, looking at ways that are still on the cutting edge. I think there are different things that are of the moment and that may work right now that have not worked in the past. And by slightly changing certain creatives too, it may resonate with an audience in a different way than it had in the past. Or maybe it didn't work in the past, but it does work now. Right. And so different ways of targeting and breaking down this black box of, just let the algorithm do its thing. Algorithms are not as smart as I think we think they are.
We agree completely. So
there's still oversight that you need to have, and intellectualism that you should be inserting, and a little bit of instinct too along the way.
Yeah, and a desire to try something new. I like what you said, that it's not just about trying new things; it's about finding the right things. But also sometimes what's old becomes new again because you can do it a little smarter and a little more efficiently, and you'll get better results from it. So it's really smart. Eric, I just want to thank you for joining us, giving us an inside look on how, you're redefining really movement and fun and the future of personal transportation. So whether you're a seasoned rider or just curious about what it feels like to float on pavement, be sure to visit their site at onewheel.com. And as always, if you like this podcast, be sure to like and follow us for more inspiring content. Eric, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for having me. This was great.